And can you all, I can see some of the classes. So if you are able to hear me, will you give me a thumbs up? Okay, it looks like you guys can. Good deal. Okay. Well, I want to make sure that we can get started so you guys are able to see this whole tour today. But first, welcome to one of our farm chats. My name is Sarah Preston, and I am a classroom educator with North Central Iowa Ag in the Classroom. And today, I am out on a dairy farm, and we are kind of in between, I would say, if you kind of go right smack dab in the middle of Garner, Britt, and Forest City. So if any of you guys are in that area, and I know we have some classes jumping on from that area where you're almost smack dab in the middle if you drew a line in between those three towns. And like I said, we are on a dairy farm today, and we are going to learn about what all of the hard work it takes to being a dairy farmer and where our milk and other dairy products come from. And so we're going to get a tour, and then after our tour, we are going to have time for questions. And so I did get the list of questions that your teachers submitted. If you have additional questions, please feel free to then put those in the chat during our farm chat. Brenda Mormon is also on. She's our program director. And during the question and answer session, she's going to unmute herself to help with the questions, as we have lots of different classes on today. But if you could stay on mute and just put your questions into the chat, that would be great, and then we can make sure we cover as many questions as possible. But to get started with the farm chat, I'm going to flip the camera around, and I have with me Nathan Nedved, and Nathan is a dairy farmer here on his family's farm. And so he's going to be giving us our tour today. And I get to tour a lot of different farms, and this one's pretty cool. So I hope you guys enjoy your tour. So I'm going to flip it around. I might hand this mic to you. Okay, if you want to introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Nathan Nedved, and I'm one of the three boys of Nedved Family Farms. Myself, my brother Aaron, and Bradley Nedved all farm with our parents, David and Alberta. We're based around the Hayfield, Iowa area. We went to school in Garner, Hayfield, and all three of us boys went to Iowa State University in three different areas. So, and on our dairy farm, we have 250 to 260 milking cows. This farm right here, we raise all our replacement heifers. And in this barn, it's about the size of a football field, as Sarah can kind of show you a little bit from the distance. We built this barn about 4 years ago, and it encloses about almost 300 animals. So we have cows that are having babies in here. There's a few sick cows if we need to take care of them. And then what's really neat about this operation is we have 4 milking robots. So where in the past we had to either manually or had an automatic unit milk the cows, we have a robot, or at least 4 of them, that milk 24 hours a day. So out of the 4 run all day and all night and milk our 250 to 260 cows. So we'll kind of go through a little farm walk and go throughout the barn and kind of explain the barn and all the different operations here. There, as we pan over, we've got another robot here that's cleaning up after the cows. This is a robotic manure collector, and it can collect about 90 gallons of manure, and kind of like a Roomba that you guys would probably have in your house if your parents have, and they clean up after you guys. These little red things clean up after the cows. Altogether, there's 2 of the Roombas, 4 milking robots, and then a feed pusher that's robotically pushes up the feed for the cows. So in our barn, we have about 4 different breeds of cows. We have some Holsteins, which are black and white. The Jerseys, which are mainly brown and a tint of white with them. And then some European breeds that are more white-faced, we're Flexies from Germany. We have a combination of mid-sized to smaller cows because our farm is an organic farm. Organic means that we don't use crops, any pesticides, and then also antibiotics to treat our cows when they're sick. We have all natural remedies that we can use that are organically approved, and we've been doing this since 2005. So these cows are housed in the barn during the winter months, and then the remainder of the year, they get to have the opportunity to go outside and graze in the field. So in front of this cow right here, we have some feed, and it's kind of like going to the school buffet and putting all your different goodies in together. So we have hay, corn silage, ear corn, soybean meal, and it's all mixed together for the cows, and it's their favorite meal. So as we go through the barn here, each cow has a mattress. The mattress they're able to lay down on, and we bed that mattress twice a day. So we clean up after the cows and put fresh lime and sawdust bedding to keep them comfortable and clean. Above the stalls, we have fans, so when the temperature gets a little bit warmer, we can keep the cows comfortable and cool. So summertime when it gets really hot, the cows are in a good environment and they're not stressed out. You see the orange marks on the cow's head. We did give vaccinations this morning, so that's how we mark each cow that's been completed. This rail right here is a headlock, and if we need to give that vaccination to catch that cow, we can trip this lever, which catches her head in here. It doesn't hurt her, but it gives us a safer environment to work with the cows.
How did you get into dairy farming?
Okay, so my dad's been doing this about 38 years, and I went to school to learn about agricultural business, and I knew at least 1 or 2 of my brothers would join the family farm, but as we wanted to grow in size and the labor force was really challenging to find people that wanted to work with cows. So I kind of designed this barn and set things up for my family and kind of found the natural fit to joining the operation. I help out in the field, help with some of the baby calves, and then cleaning of the barn and keeping the robots going. So it's a family business here where we have all of us working together.
Repeated, Brenda said they're in the hard to do. You guys, so you talked about cows. Do you have any bulls on your farm?
Okay, so out of the total farm, we have 585 animals, and out of that 585, we have 4 mature bulls, and we use them only in the pasture setting when they're not in the barns.
What's the difference between dairy cows and feed cattle?
Okay, yeah, good question. So the main difference between dairy cows and beef cows is the genetics that are made for the dairy animals. They're a higher producing animal for milk, and they're strictly used for just the milk consumption. So they're not as thick, and their frame is a little more bony, but both can produce milk, but a dairy cow is more designed for that type of production. Stand back here and go over the milking portion. Any other questions you'd like to cover while we're walking?
What breed, you talked about the Holstein and Jersey breed. What breed is your favorite?
Okay, I guess over the last 5 years, we've been breeding more of the white-faced Flexies from Germany, and they're just a really nice, easy to work with animal. They love to be outside, and they love to come up to you, and if you stand there long enough, they probably lick you all day.
like this is what you were
Correct.
talking about.
Yep.
How about all of your cows have babies and you keep them?
So we try to have each cow have one baby per year. If they can't, they don't always stick around on our farm or they go to another farm. But we try to keep the female babies, and then the males we sell off to other farmers in the area.
And then you kind of showed the Roomba like that cleans up the manure. Do you have to clean the manure, or how does that work for the rest of the barn?
So the rest of the barn is on a big scraper system, and you can pan through here or maybe look at it a little bit later when it's running. But it cleans up behind the cows and pushes the manure to the opposite end of the barn. And we have to clean up a little bit of the areas in between around the robots just to make sure we're staying clean.
We're ready.
All right, we're gonna go in here and see the cows get milked. So this cow's right now is scanning its teeth. You can see the laser is looking for those coordinates. So the little red laser is scanning on the cow.
Okay, so Nathan is working with one of the robots right now. With the robots, this is it's like a great big arm that's going to be helping with milking the cow. So this does everything from cleaning the cow's teeth, because once we get the milk out of, so this, I guess I should start with, this is the udder of the cow. And that is where they hold all of the milk. And so when we get the milk from the cow, the robot has a very important job of not only getting the milk from the cow, but also making sure that it is clean when it comes out. And so it actually has these little brushes, and before it starts milking the cow, we'll clean each of the cow's teeth. And a cow has 4 teeth that it's going to get the milk from. So it kind of has 4 different compartments in its udder, and that is how we get the milk out. And so the robots have a very important job of not only getting the milk, but cleaning them. And then once the udder is clean, we'll then place the cups onto the udder and are able to milk it from there. So Nathan, what else do you have to add to that?
Yeah, so the robot is actually taking the milk. We never physically have to touch the cow. We'll look behind this panel here. And from the milk hoses, it comes up here. You can see the milk coming through, and it's collected in this milk jar. And that milk jar pumps it over to our bulk tank, which the milkman comes every 2 days. And this milk is never touched by humans, so we can actually just send it over to the milk tank, and it keeps everything clean, and goes for fluid milk into either milk cartons or cheese or whatever the creamery decides.
How long does it take for the robot to milk the cow?
So the duration of a milking is about 6 to 6.5 minutes based on the cow. So this one right here, it's got 1 out of the 4 left, so she's about completed. So we're going to watch as it completes the milking process, and it's going to spray an iodine or a dip on the cows to protect it from anything getting in those teeth.
And does this sometimes happen that, being they kind of have their 4 different compartments, one might just take a little bit longer than another?
Correct. So right now it's just spraying those teeth. Yeah, each individual teeth is different than another, and sometimes they take longer. The cow has exited the robot, We'll have another one coming here. And they all kind of just line up on their own and come in when they want.
And how often do they get milk?
On a typical farm is at least minimum 2 times per day. On our farm, we range about 2.7 to 2.8 times per cow per day they need to milk.
And how much milk does the average cow get?
The average cow on our farm is just over 8 to 8.5 gallons.
One of the really important things too when it comes to dairy cows is they have to drink a lot of water to make milk. How much water does a cow need each day?
Typically, we would shoot for about 25 to 30 gallons. So, in putting in that in terms of understanding is about like a bathtub full of water. So it's quite a bit of water for a cow to consume, but they weigh anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 pounds. So the more milk they have, the happier they are, the more milk they produce. And the water really helps out, especially in the hot days of the summer.
Another milking question is, you said that how long it takes for each cow to be milked. Can they come in 24/7 to be milked, or are there certain times?
So the cows are allowed to come in anytime they want, but it will only milk them every 6 hours. So the most that this cow can be milked in a day is 4, maybe 5 times maximum. Each time the cow comes in, she is given a little protein treat. So it's molasses on top of corn, soybeans, and a mixture of oats. That helps get the cows into the robot box. The robot's just scanning here to find those teeth. On the lawn. It helps if the cow stands still. They're not always perfect, but it does a fairly good job. Sometimes they like to kick a little bit. This is a younger one that just came into the herd. So sometimes we have to pet her a little bit and make sure she's okay and calm her down.
So when you say young cow, what age is that?
The typical age of a cow to come into the milking herd is at 2 years of age. So the life of a cow on our farm is anywhere from 2 years old in milking, and last year we had our oldest cow that was 16 years old.
Now, with the robotic dairy, do a lot of dairies around here use robots?
I would say about 10 to 15% of dairy farms now have robots in the state of Iowa. I think there's at least 70 farms now in the state that have them. So they're becoming more and more popular. So this type of robot's been milking cows over in Europe for at least 25 years. In the last 10, it's become more and more known in the U.S.
And when maybe we can see it from the outside, a question came in about then, is there any records or how does it record what cow is what and what they're producing and having all the records behind each cow?
Great question. So each cow has a necklace or basically a Fitbit that's in there. So it determines how active the cow is, how many steps she's taking a day, and then also how many times she's chewing, which is her rumination. And then we can actually get a report and see what that cow is doing in a day. If she's not active, we know that she comes up on a list and she's sick. And then also it tells us how much she's getting fed at the robot, how many pounds of milk she's producing in a day. And then it tells also the last time she was bred and then when her next time to have a calf. We mark down all those dates and information. So it's has a lot of information that we can show you a little bit later on the computer to get that view.
And like Nathan was saying, that these cows automatically line up by themselves, which I think is pretty neat. So these cows know exactly when it is time for them to be milked. And look at how nicely they just stand here and wait. And they just wait their turn. Oh, one just left. And so those pellets come out and the new cow is now going in to be milked. So they do pretty good about waiting in line and waiting their turn. And I think something that Nathan shared with me, which I think is kind of funny too, is that when they have some, you know, the one cow that we saw, he said was new to the herd. She's about a 2-year-old. And when those come in, they might not eat all of their pellets. And so some of the older cows, as soon as they see those younger cows line up to be milked, try to get in right behind it because they know that there might be some extra food for them to eat. And so cows know their way around the barn and know who to be behind and just are able to, you know, figure out how to, when it's time for them to be milked by themselves. Okay, another question that came in when we're by the milking or the robot is, do you make skim 1%, 2% whole or soy milk?
Good question. So our farm is 100% whole milk, and after that it goes to creamery, and then they decide what to make it into. And soy milk would be coming from a soy-based product, which, in my opinion, isn't really milk. But each person has their own opinion to that, and there's enough for everybody to go around. Okay, so we have whole milk on our farm. Once it is picked up from the milkman, they take it to the creamery to be processed. And then the creamery either puts it into 1% skim, chocolate, strawberry, what other flavors there are. And soy milk is from a soy-based product that doesn't come from cows.
So even this brown and white cow right here gives us white milk, right?
Correct, yeah. So every cow gives white milk.
Another question came in about, do you name your cows and do you have a favorite cow?
Okay. So probably 20 years ago, we used to name all our cows, but we were a lot smaller farm size. So we started running out of names because it's hard to think of all those names. So with our time in 20 plus years of dairy farming, or actually my dad's been doing it almost 40, this cow is 1344. And I'm pretty sure we had to start over at least once when we got above 2,500 numbering system. So we keep good records and keep track of the cows by the numbering system. And that's the collar that I was talking about. That's on this cow. The red collar, and then right underneath her chin, as you can see, is the transponder. And that transponder sends a signal above the water over there, and that sends it to the computer. And then the computer tells us what information that cow's doing at each part of the day. Every 2 minutes, it's updated. So regardless if the cow's in the barn or out in the pasture, it's always sending information to tell us how they're doing, and we can keep track of them. Yeah, we can scan over here, and show you a few other pens that we have.
Another question that came in is, do you have bottle calves, or do the calves stay with their mom?
The cows and the babies will stay with each other for at least up to a half a day together. But what we found, just for the safety of the baby, we need to get the calf in its individual pen right away. So then we bottle feed it at least twice a day. So in this pen behind me here, these cows sometimes get lame feet or troublesome feet. So we give them a nice straw bedded pack area that they can lay down in, and it's easy for them to get back to health and get their feet healthy so they can get back in the main herd.
Now, really quickly, they're all like, it kind of looks like they're chewing gum. Why are they doing that, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so the cows chew their cud because basically they're chewing up their feed particles and getting into smaller pieces, and then they also send them down to their stomachs. And I think another question was, cows have 4 stomachs, and some of that feed is actually spit back up and they re-chew it, and then the cow utilizes that different type of protein or grain in their diet. And we know when they're a happy and healthy cow, they're chewing their cud. So this is the final robot. It actually goes around and follows this track and pushes up the feed every hour on each side. So there's a total of 7 robots in this barn. These animals in here is our maternity pen or calving pen. So these cows are expected to have a baby within the next 2 weeks. So we can keep a good eye on them, and if they need any assistance, we can help get that calf out or feed it right away and keep it warm.
How many calves do you have a day?
Typically, we'll have a calf a day or every other day. So I always shoot for about 5 calves a week. And we calve all year round. It doesn't matter what the season is. We always have babies. You can see here there's a mixed color of all the different breeds in the farm.
That you have the calves and the babies, and you keep them with their mom for half a day or so. Then you guys feed them, or where do they go from here?
Yep. So we feed them on our farm. We put them in individual pens, and then we feed them twice a day. And then after 3 weeks, we have a system that's actually a robotic calf feeder, and it will feed that baby up to 6 times a day. So she grows a lot faster and gets more milk and learns how to be in a classroom type setting for calves. So there's about 15 to 20 calves in a group. And then as they go through their stages of life, every month they get changed to necessarily probably like a new classroom. So they get to graduate to the next class and move to a different barn. And then eventually the ultimate goal is to be in this milking barn producing milk.
We have about 10 minutes left.
Okay. So another neat feature on this barn is a curtain barn. On the sides in the wintertime, it goes all the way tight so the snow and wind stays out. But in the summertime, we can open it all the way up and the fresh wind will come in and keep the cows cool. And then we open up the doors and then the cows can go out in the pasture and enjoy their time. But what we like most about these robots is it allows the cows to be in their natural place, and they get to decide if they want to go eat something, they want to go get milk, they want to go drink water, or if they want to lay down all day, they have the opportunity to do so. So it's pretty nice that the cows, in my mind, they almost get a better lifestyle than we do.
With 10 minutes left, or a little less than 10 minutes now, do you guys want, if you have additional questions, I know some have been coming in on the chat that I will ask Nathan, but just wanted to see if you guys have any more questions. Feel free to type those in the chat now. And one of the ones that came up is, what is the red on the cow's head? And did you want to talk quickly about the amount of food that they eat?
Okay, yeah, so the red marking on the head on the other side, we did a herd check this morning, which means we gave the cows the proper vaccinations that they get every 6 months. So that's a way for us to make sure that we know each animal gets completed. And the amount of feed or food that the cow would eat in a common day is about 25 pounds. They always say about 1 to 2% of their body weight. So in these animals, they're anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 pound animals. So that'd be about 25 pounds.
Another weight question is, how much does a calf weigh when it's born?
Okay, typically when a baby is born, the smallest is about 90 pounds on our farm, and the heaviest that we've had is about 150 pounds. So 100 pounds is pretty common.
Okay. What about what happens, with milk cows? What happens? How long do they milk, and what happens to them then after they don't make any more milk?
Okay. So typically on our farm, a cow will stay on our farm as long as she's having a baby and producing milk. Typical life for our cows is, like I said, up to 16 years, but on average right now, I think they're about 4 or 5 years old as you go throughout the herd. If they are not milking anymore or can't have calves,
Next question, how do you know if a cow is going to have a baby?
yeah, good question. So we have an indicator of whether the cow is pregnant by a blood test that we can draw, or we can have the veterinarian come out, and they have a protocol of helping determine if that cow is confirmed pregnant.
Another question of how many calves do you have right now on the farm?
Calves probably under the age of 3 months. I would say there's at least 45 of those calves. So out of all the cows, 585, most of them, it'd be about half of the size of the dairy herd, because there's about 50 to 55% of those babies are females, and we keep all those females for the next upcoming years for a future herd.
When we were talking about what happens with the cows, the question came in is, do even the females get processed?
Yes, they do.
And I think what's interesting too is, even from the meat side of things, is dairy animals can actually have very high quality meat, and can have a lot of marbling, which is the flavor in your beef, right?
Correct. I would say all types of beef can have that type of flavor. It just depends on the diet that they consume and what the farmer feeds them. And it may take a little bit longer for a dairy animal to finish out, but calf is born sick. We'll put it in an individual pen under a heat lamp so it stays warm, and then we'll give it the colostrum, which is the mother's milk from the first day or two. And then if there is any, I guess sometimes if it's super cold, we'll put a calf jacket on so it stays warm, like you guys wear for coats out in the winter time. And then if we need to give them any types of medicine, we'll administer an organic remedy at that time. And if they're excessively sick, we do have antibiotics on hand, and then we'll treat them with antibiotics. But those animals can no longer stay on our farm. So we have sold them to other farmers if they do get that sick. But that rarely happens.
And the last couple questions is, so where do you sell your milk?
Okay. So our milk is sold to a cooperative called Organic Valley. I can show you the logo here in a little bit with the barn, but it is sold into Wisconsin, and then you can buy it at your local Hy-Vees, Quick Stars, Target, and Walmart. And there's cheese, milk, cottage cheese, and some ice cream products.
The next question is, do robots have a battery life?
That's a good question. So there is a backup battery on the robot. and they last about an hour, but that's only if the power goes out. But with our farm, we have a backup generator to keep the robots always running. So the most we've ever been down is about 20 minutes, and they power back up, and just like a computer or a cell phone, you need to restart it, and away it goes. So they don't have necessarily a battery life. So most of the robots that are overseas, there's some of them out there 25 to almost 28 years.
How many calves does a cow have in her life?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, depending on how old the cow is, and if she stays productive in the ability to have calves, we've had them have up to 13 is what the most we've had. But I say on average, it would probably be 5 or 6 is pretty typical for our herd.
The question also came in is when you do have to give a cow medicine, do you give it a shot or do you give it in another way?
So there's different ways. You can give it in a shot form, or we can give it in a liquid bolus form, which is like a big pill capsule that we have to put the cow in the headlock, and then there's a little tube that goes down her throat, and we gently give that cow that bolus so it gets into her stomach.
What about when you showed the maternity pen, do all the cows keep milking until they have their next baby, or do they have a break?
So we do give them a dry off period or a break. So usually that's about 2 months before, or 3 months before they'd have a baby. So they have another opportunity to go either out to pasture or to another barn where the other cows are in the same state, going to have a baby. So then they get a different ration over there and time to relax and get ready for that preparation time that they need to have that baby upcoming.
I think so far, I think that is all of the questions. Does anyone else have any last minute questions before we end our farm chat today? How often, you have the robot, how often do you have to check on the cows or be in the barn?
So even though we have robots, we're still out in the barn quite a bit. So I would say at least 6 to 8, or sometimes up to 12 hours a day. We're in here doing chores, cleaning their stalls, cleaning the calf waters. If there's a new cow that has a baby, we're making sure the calf gets to its pen. So it takes some time. So robots are nice, but they don't do all the work for you. They just help with the milking aspect of it and cleaning, but it allows us to be better managers and do a better job of keeping our eyes on the animals and making sure they're being kept of the best ability that we can.
So the next question is, do you ever get to go on vacation?
With dairy farmers, that's very rare, but we get some time away if my brothers cover for me, and we do that for them. So most dairy farmers, their vacations are to go see other dairy farms.
A couple more. How tall is the average cow?
How tall? I would say probably 4 to 4.5 feet would be typical.
And do all the cows get along, or do some cows not get along with each other?
So typically we have a few boss cows, and what that means is they kind of run the show, and they push the younger ones or the other ones around, and they want to go to the robot first. But after a while, they have other options of going to another robot, so the cows kind of work together. But just like you guys have brothers and sisters, you don't always get along. These cows fight a little bit, but I would say 99% of the time they're getting along, and they have a lot of room to do whatever they want. And if someone's bugging them, they can kind of go in a different part of the barn.
Okay. Well, I think that was the rest of our questions today. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Nathan, for giving us this tour and letting us learn about all of the things with dairy farming. And I hope you guys can go home today why don't you guys go home, share something about dairy, and make sure next time you guys are in the grocery store, you're getting milk, yogurt, cheese, and supporting all of the dairy farmers like the Nedveds here. So thank you all, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. See ya.